Welcome to the Red Dot Perspective. We're here to break down global news into bite-sized insights with a Singaporean twist. Our discussions unrehearsed, just free-form chats between good friends who love talking about everything from serious topics to everyday BS. I'm David Lee, aspiring to be Singapore's greatest moderator, and we have...
Yambun, I'm here on Valentine's Day.
I'm spending time with my loved one. I hope you see me the same way.
Yeah, I can try, David. I can try.
All right, man. So let us deep dive and have some fun. All right. So
Right.
on January 20th, 2025, Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th president of the United States of America, making him the first president in modern history to serve 2 consecutive terms. His return to the White House signals a beginning of a new chapter with a renewed focus on key domestic and international priorities. Well, as his administration takes shape, many are watching closely to understand the policies and initiatives that will define this term. So let us take a closer look at the early days and what lies ahead. And Ken Boon, as we all know, Trump has come in for the first 30 days. He has come in hard. He's come in fast. What do you feel about it, man?
Well, first of all, he's every content creator's biggest wet dream. Because every single day you got something to talk about. I love it, man. But I think one of the things about his second term is that he seems to be a lot more organized in the way that he's doing things. I think in the
Exactly.
first term it was quite it's quite disorganized, and he had many
Exactly.
big ideas. He sold the optics of it, but he didn't really have the right people fronting all of those ideas. But this time around, even before he came on board in 2025, he named the people that he wanted to key appointments.
Exactly.
He basically strong armed the Congress and Senate into confirming them, basically getting an implicit approval right before the actual
Yes.
confirmation. And you can see that it's paying dividends, especially in areas of like immigration, healthcare, education, etc., where people are already in place or almost in place, and you see that it's pushing specific agendas in those areas.
No,
But
that's
I think one of the
exactly
things I think
right.
about is that it's clearer what Trump wants. So
Yeah.
in some ways, right, it is actually quite nice to know that okay, he
Correct.
may be a bit radical in some of his thinking, but
Yes.
at least it is clear where his positions stand, and you know exactly how to react to it when they go live.
No, it's true. Hold your thought on radical. So actually, a lot of what Trump has been doing, surprisingly, when you do deep dive research, is actually what America has done in the past. It's just that it's not been done for a while. And to your point on Trump being more clear on what he wants to do, knowing who to hire in the different roles. Apparently, insider news has been said that in the first term, Trump relied on normal political Republicans, those that have been in the system for years. And they actually were never for Trump. They were more Bush's men. So that was why you realize that when Trump got in, it was really more of the same. And a lot of his picks were actually against him, if you really look through. And typically for the first 1 year, he had a lot of trouble getting his picks through Congress. Right? It took him about 18 months. And after he got them into 18 months, the next he had basically about 18 months to kickstart whatever he needed. And then you had COVID hit. So his first term, to be honest, was a mixture of, the deep, they call it the deep state politicians and also COVID. But, let's go through what he has done over the 30 days. It's really quite a lot across 9 different teams. The first thing was immigration, the main thing he talked about. And the deportation is the main thing he has been talking about, and that is his campaign promise, right? Trade policy, we all know, imposition of tariffs. And one very interesting thing to note, he is planning to establish a sovereign wealth fund. And then we just go down the list. Government restructuring, the Department of Governmental Efficiency, or DOGE. This is a topic for next week because we have so much to talk about. So let's leave that for the next week. All right, we're okay with that, Ken Boon? And then the one thing he has been going very hard on is really DI. Basically, all of the LGBT content removal and transgender military ban. And really, the whole suite of things, environmental policy, pardons, withdrawal from WHO. Basically, he revoked by all of Biden-era's policies. So in 30 days, the guy has gone through a lot. Is there anything I'm missing, Kembun?
I mean, this guy has been really busy, man. Like I don't know how he sleeps, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really amazing because the dude is 70 plus year old. He eats burgers, he drinks Coke as if it was water, and yet he functions. This goes against what we are taught. Sleep well, eat healthy, exercise. No, just be a Trump and you'll be equally efficient.
Allegedly, right, he does his best thinking while on the potty, right, and
Really?
and sometimes, right, the way it seems, right, is that he tweets out an idea and he conceptualizes it in his own head, right. He says it out, and then he has a bunch of minions that just makes it happen. It's almost in a corporate environment, right? Sometimes like the big bosses say a big idea, and then you got no choice but to make it happen. So sometimes it really feels that way. So I wonder if there's a bit of a science to the madness of Donald Trump.
Serious. But think his coming of ideas was taking a douche. That's amazing, dude. I wish I could be that effective.
Yeah, but I
Must have
think
been long douches, man.
yeah, man. I'm just amazed. To be honest, I mean the fact that he's able to get this enablement team right around him, where he says A and they make A happen, that is impressive. Because even
That is
companies, CEOs of companies, they have their trusted inner circle, right? But even
correct.
they may not be able to make things happen all the time. But with Trump, right, he has installed this great group of people. Okay, maybe great is a bit of an overstatement, right? Great in the sense that they get things done, share the
Yes.
same perspective, and almost are on the same wavelength as their boss. And
Yeah,
in fact,
exactly.
if I look at something that I read today, like the education secretary that is currently going through confirmation, I think Linda McMahon, the wife of the ex WWE CEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was asked during the confirmation hearing on whether she would be looking at taking away cultural clubs in schools.
Yeah.
So what that is, for example, if you go to school and there is an African American club or there's an
Yep.
Asian club, is she going to take those away as a result of being in alignment with the DEI policies that Trump has?
Oh.
And she couldn't answer the question. She refused to answer the question directly. It seems obvious that the answer should be it's okay, right? But he doesn't
Yeah.
because she does not know what her boss will think and what his position is. So she didn't want to put her boss in a position where she has to backtrack, right? So you can see that the people that are in place at his cabinet level are all his loyalists.
Yeah, it's true. Kash Patel was the same. They asked Kash Patel who won the 2020 elections. He said,
right.
Joe Biden is the president, 46th president of the United States of America. He just did not want to say Joe Biden won the elections because he
you don't want to give a soundbite, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Crazy.
It's well, we will see what next. But let us now zoom in on one of the few things that will impact Singapore and Asia greatly: tariffs. I mean, let me just share with you guys what tariffs mean. In a high level, tariffs literally is a tax imposed by one country on goods and services imported from another country to influence it, raise revenues, or protect competitive advantages. Basically, there are two types, correct? One is a fixed fee. So if it's say we have a tariff on a car, we say the fee is $500, and whatever car it is, it can be a Mercedes, it can be a Proton Saga, $500, or it can be what they call ad valorem. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's basically just a percentage. You set a certain percentage on the import's value. So this is essentially tariffs. And who do you think he has slammed the tariffs on recently?
You would think China, right? But he's picking fights with Canada. He's picking fight with allies. Europe. He's picking fight with Europe. I fundamentally cannot understand this. And I don't understand, right? What's the angle? Is it a case where he's trying to raise revenue for the government?
Yes,
so tariffs are one way of doing that? Or is this part of a greater play where tariffs are just one moving part as as part of negotiations, and there are other moving parts that he may be more interested in? So it's not clear at the moment. Also, at the back of my head, I'm thinking, is there really a strategy, or is really let's try this and see how it goes, right?
No, so as we discussed this, in my opinion, I think Trump, there is madness to his strategy. The first term Trump, I did not understand what the hell he was doing. Actually, the second term Trump, I can really start to see the strategy behind him. There is some genius in his madness, correct? So you're right. He essentially laid a 10% tariffs on all Chinese products and basically a 25% tariff on Mexican and Canadian. But do you know what happened? So apparently, when you read the news, he has now had a side discussion with Trudeau and the Mexican president, and now they have agreed that they will put in extra security along the borders to avoid the import of fentanyl, which is a heroin-like drug into
Illegal
America.
drug, yeah.
So
Yeah.
so to your point, and because of that, the tariffs have been delayed for I think 1 month to 90 days. 90 days.
Correct.
So and the same thing also was used for Colombia. So Colombia, they wanted to deport the Colombia immigrants back to Colombia, and Colombia said no, we will let you land. And Trump say, I'll just use my favorite word, tariffs. And Colombia backed down. They in fact allowed the Americans to land in the Colombian airports to return their nationals. So
Yeah, so it's
on my
leverage.
point, it's leverage. I feel it's mainly
it's
used for leverage. But the thing is, for China, it's really interesting because China really, people might say it's unfair. What I think is, people might say it's unfair to layer tariffs on Chinese products, but actually you think about it, China actually subsidizes the products back in China. So technically it's a tariff-like product, but instead of charging the buyer, they give it to the companies so that the products can be sold cheaper.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Am I right to say that? Subsidies,
yeah,
right?
Subsidies and indirect incentives.
So on the point, he is using the tariff too, and it has literally yielded results. So it's quite an interesting thing. But Ken Boon, I'm not sure you noticed this. Again, I said earlier in our chat, this is not new. Tariffs is not a new thing. It's not used in the modern era of the US presidency as a tool, as an economic tool. But actually in America, tariffs have been used for a long, long time. Let's look at it this way, correct? When America was first came into existence, actually, do you know what is the second constitution they wrote? It is actually the Tariff Act.
Wow. Okay, didn't know.
So this was the second documentation they wrote, a second piece of legislation after the US Constitution. So imagine that. So this has been in America's DNA for a long time. And if we zoom in, so Kenwood, me, I went down a rabbit hole. It's like when you go to Wikipedia, you see an interesting topic, you start clicking. So I double-clicked quite a lot. So I went down a rabbit hole, and then I found out that, hey, over the past 100 years, Americans have multiple tariffs. And you see, since 1789, they have been doing tariffs. And if we zoom in further another round, so if you look at the chart, this is fascinating. Up until 1910, most of America's revenue came for tariffs until the introduction of income tax and social insurance. So America's only source of revenue was tariffs. So it has always been their DNA. So that's amazing to think. So Trump is just opening the old playbook, dusting it off, must be in cobwebs, blowing the dust off, and then just reusing it.
Okay. It's an interesting background. I know not much about tariffs historically, but in modern day, I guess the way to think about tariffs is that if you implement it on another country, you better be prepared for reciprocal reactions. And in general, if you apply to a country where you have a trade deficit with, like China, then it's okay because they'll be sending more things to you and tax at a certain rate, and whereas you'll be sending less things over to them, tax at maybe at the same rate, right? So you still win in the end. Yeah, so I can understand the fight that you're picking with China, but I really don't understand the fight that you're picking with countries that have a trade surplus. It doesn't really make sense.
You're exactly right, because for Canada, that's the scary part, because Canada and USA is really quite tightly connected. So correct me, apparently you were ex-oil and gas guy, apparently quite a lot of the oil and gas and energy comes from Canada. Am I right to say that?
So that is correct. So if you think of it from an oil and gas perspective, actually it kind of makes sense to tax the oil imports into US. So Trump is trying to push for domestic production increases and make America an energy hub of the world, right? So by taxing oil imports from Canada, this is in line with his strategic direction towards that. But with that said, though, there are already pipelines in place to bring Canadian oil into US. So those are going to be unutilized, and there's economies of scales that are already achieved through those pipelines. So whether this is something that is a long-term play for Trump, that's yet to be seen.
But if you look at the chart I brought up, they said Canada makes up 63% of America's barrels. So the question is, when we look at tariffs, we take a step back. We say, we implement tariffs on, say, oil and gas. Actually, who pays for the tariffs? It's actually the consumer that pays for the tariffs, not. I mean, he has set up something called the External Revenue Service to collect these tariffs, but essentially the user, the buyer, is the one that is being hit by this indirect tax in a way, correct?
Yeah. No, not just in oil and gas, in general, any tariffs that are implemented always gets passed on to the consumer. There is no company in their right mind that will be like, oh, there's going to be 5% tariff. I guess we have to reduce our profit margin by 5% then in order to help the consumers. Nobody does that, man.
So that's the point. So I understand China, correct? You have to fight China and bring the products to parity to US products to give the American companies a fighting chance. But oil and gas is fundamental input to all products.
Yeah.
If you embed a tariff on oil and gas product from, like say, most of your stuff comes from Canada, wouldn't that raise prices across every product? It basically will bring up an inflation. It's not really an inflation, because inflation, everything rises, but it will make it more expensive for Americans in general. So wouldn't this be, if Canada calls bluff, wasn't this hurt the American taxpayer?
I mean, it's inflationary for sure if you were to tax Canadian oil imports. But if American production goes up in tandem, there may not be any impact. So I'm sure there's consideration around how his baby burn policies, right, helps to increase the domestic US production to offset. And I'm sure somebody has worked out those beautiful numbers in theory. But whether those things will happen in tandem is yet to be seen.
But that's interesting. So you are oil guy. Opening a new well or opening a new fracking facility, I don't think it's going to go so fast, right? It's going to take some time.
Come on stream, yeah. It's going to take time. That's why I said that it's not going to happen in tandem. So if there's a significant taxation on Canadian oil, while the domestic production ramps up, it's going to be a lag. You're talking about years of lag. And that's going to cause a lot of pain to the consumers who have to bear the brunt of any kind of inflationary pressures on the goods they are getting and services they are getting.
Basically, it's now who blinks first between America and Canada.
And you know the funny story, the presidency lasts for 4 years, right? The effects of what is being done now may not even be felt until the next presidential term, which will not be Trump. I mean, the Constitution does not allow for more than 2 terms for now. So if the Constitution still stands,
I've been watching many YouTubes on my free time. So people are already mentioning, they want Trump to come back for the 3rd term. But we'll see how it goes. But the next point is China. We mentioned earlier that China had a 10% tariff, and then China did a tick for tack. So China's tick for tack is pretty hardcore. They have already hit they've just implemented, let me see, they just implemented a 15% border tax on imports of US coal and liquefied natural products, and a 10% tariff on American crude oil, agricultural machinery, and large engine cars. And I think they've also imposed export controls on 25 rare metals, which is important to many of our electronic products. And they are starting to launch an anti-monopoly probe onto Google.
So China's response is quite muted. So it is a moderate response designed to still keep negotiations ongoing. Because the truth is, look at it this way.
What do you say?
China does not import that many things from the US in terms of dollar value. So by imposing those things you just mentioned, right, it is really not much in terms of damage to the US interest. Whereas the things that US have done, right, the 10% flat out, right, is going to be a significantly larger damage to China. But yet China did not proportionally respond. So this shows that they're willing to negotiate. Just like back in his first term when Trump implemented tariffs, China was also quite muted in its response. And eventually things came to a kind of stable point. So I think this is still China's strategy for now. But of course, if pushed to the corner, I would imagine that if China really wanted to inflict real pain, many avenues to do that. I mean, don't just tax rare metals, right? Just go all out and ban it. That will inflict real damage to the supply chain.
So maybe just to go back to your point, China imports coal and LNPG mainly from which countries? You're right, it's not really China, right? It's not really America.
It's not American, yeah. Because if you think about natural gas, most natural gas is piped within the US. So it doesn't link to China. So the only kind of LNG that can be brought to China are those via large ships, right? And those generally are not sourced from the US. China will buy it from elsewhere.
Is it from the Middle East or I remember Southeast Asia had a lot of natural gas
Middle
deposits,
East,
right?
Europe, Middle East and Europe. Yeah.
I see. So you're right. It doesn't really affect China. It's more to show you that. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I didn't realize that.
It's a nothing burger. So it's all for optics, right? To show that they're responding. But if you read between the lines, it's moderated and it should be okay. So just watch for the escalation or de-escalation.
I
And you see this
see.
playing out in the stock markets, by the way. So with all the tariff stock coming in play this whole week,
Yeah,
you look
yeah,
at the Hang Seng Index for Hong Kong,
yeah.
you look at the Chinese CSI, all the markets are going up. So if tariffs are really such a bad thing, you would imagine that it's going to escalate, right? And more importantly, Trump said that he's going to announce reciprocal tariffs on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Came and went. Nothing serious came about. So, yeah,
Oh, nothing serious
happened.
here. What does reciprocal tariff? It just means if you tariff me,
He
you don't
didn't
friend me, I
clarify.
don't friend you. Basically,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
yeah.
does that
He did not actually say what that meant, and nothing happened. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so no, you're right, because the American in the US stock market, apparently tariffs didn't do much. So apparently the traders just felt that Trump was just posterizing. He was still going to execute it. I see. A point you mentioned earlier about rare metals, China banning rare metals.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it would be a bad move that if China does that. Let me explain. I was just reading. So apparently, just last year, America found one of the largest rare earths deposits in Wyoming.
Okay.
So it's the same concept. China during the COVID days, they basically shut themselves down to show that to block off COVID. So a lot of the supply chain was disrupted. And because of that one move, China is now suffering those consequences, which is now everybody is thinking, whoa, China is not a reliable manufacturing hub. Let's do a China plus one strategy. So that's happening all over the world. And Southeast Asia is benefiting from it. I think Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand. If China does the same for rare metals, then it gives America a stimulus to say, forget it, I'll just dig. And with Trump, as I shared earlier, he's not too interested about environmental concerns. It's really more economy. So now there's a reason for it. You don't want to give it to me. I need it. I'll just dig. And apparently it's basically could make US the world's largest supplier of rare earths. Actually, that's crazy. America has quite a lot of rare materials, right? I mean, oil and gas also remembered.
Yeah,
during
unlike
our
the
time
name,
there.
right? Rare earth is not actually rare in the
Nope.
sense that it's not available. The hardest part about getting rare earth out of the ground is the safety and environmental challenges. So as you rightfully pointed out, if Trump has less considerations for environmental related impact, then rare earth from US is not essentially rare. So that
is
could be
it?
interesting. Yeah.
So I always thought rare earth was rare.
Yeah.
It's just a name.
Just a name. It's
Wow.
not really rare. Yeah.
So now we've discussed about this. So the question is, what do you think is the impact to Asia and Singapore in terms of tariffs?
Harris, I guess okay. So China is going to keep to some level of production of key consumer goods, right? So if US decides to implement tariffs on them, that's going to reduce the supply going to the US, and that supply will need to go somewhere else, right? So if Asia's supply chain is not elastic enough to absorb that, then it's going to be a problem for Asia. But as it stands today, right, a lot of these tariff issues are optically driven and not actually in effect or really producing any kind of impact yet. So I think right now, short term, right, it's hard to say what will happen. Well, but in general, I mean, from a global perspective, right, if more tariffs, then more damage to economies. So that will hurt people and hurt financial markets. So that's a general direction. So the way Asia has been reacting so far is more of a wait and see kind of thing. Yeah, so it's one to watch.
It's one to watch. But do you think tariffs even work? Do you think there's a way to circumvent tariffs?
Tariffs.
Okay. Yeah. Because okay, I'll give you an example why I say such a thing, and then why I think there is potentially a positive impact. So take for example, I think there was one example I found. So not sure you can see this. So in the past, there's a SUV tariff. It's a tariffs
Right.
on SUVs. So what Mercedes did was freaking amazing. So what Mercedes did was there was a USU tariff against a foreign producer, and so what America wanted to do was for you to set up a factory in America, so they won't charge you a tariff. So essentially, what I was reading was what Mercedes did was they built everything up, they put it, then they dismantled it, put it into like an IKEA pack, all the parts, all was done, shipped it to the US factory, and the US factory put it back together. And because of that technicality, there was no tariffs charged on it. So it's exactly the same, These tariffs are not even new. These tariffs happened in its first term. So apparently, for Chinese goods, what I remembered was they shipped they produced most of it in China. They shipped it to Vietnam. Vietnam put them together, and then the product shipped from Vietnam to America, thus avoiding they white labeled it essentially. So where I'm coming from in terms of the benefits is, well, that could really give us more production. Basically, companies, because of the China plus one avoiding tariffs, they set up more manufacturing hubs in Southeast Asia. That is one. And the Chinese companies, to avoid tariffs, do the same thing. It's additional step for them, is additional cost, but a cost to them is revenue to Southeast Asia and Asia. So I think that is, as long as it's not tariffs against us, there could be benefits to it. But because Singapore has done a few dodgy things regarding the NVIDIA for DeepSeek, so we could be under investigation. But I might be wrong, but it could be a positive thing, don't you think?
Actually, now that you've gone into a bit more detail and I had some time to digest this, I think two thoughts, right? I think the first is that it's very similar to Australia, for example. Indonesia. So in Indonesia, one of the things that used to happen is that people would mine the coal in Indonesia and cause environmental impact and things like that. But then they take that coal, they do the high value processing in other places, that like Australia, etc. Right? I think it's Australia or maybe some other country. So a lot of the low end work but high environmental impact stuff happens in Indonesia, but the high value stuff happens outside of Indonesia. So what the country did was that they mandated that the processing of of uh, uh, coal needs to be done within the country itself. So that then drives that domestic GDP through coal production. I mean coal processing production, right? So if you think about from US point of view, if you were to bring that manufacturing of the parts elsewhere and bring it to the US for manufacturing, then that would then bring commerce into the country and create value for US. So that would then fit into the strategic intent of Donald Trump. So I think that's one. I think the whole aspect of like bringing it to Asia is a bit unrealistic, even though the cost of production may be lower in Asia, right? But then that product still needs to go from somewhere to Asia and then Asia to the US, which will then create a lot of friction within the value chain and increase those prices. So I'm not sure that's really viable.
So you're saying that the tariffs, instead of being a boon for Asia, it will bring manufacturing back to US soil?
I would think so, yeah. Because it would make more sense to bring those kind of manufacturing back to the US, where the government has in place certain incentives for strategic industries to do that. Like one example, why is Tesla made in the US still? Because there are incentives that support that infrastructure in the US.
True. That's true. But they also are made in China and Europe, in Germany.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Correct. So no, I see where you're coming from, but after giving you the example, I was also thinking there is benefits, there is a potential benefits to Asia itself. And again, did you know that actually Vietnam now has I think it's one of the top 5 largest trade imbalances with US. They actually have a massive surplus with the US. So again, on that point, there is benefits. If it does happen, there is benefits, in manufacturing, and then Singapore being the headquarters of Southeast Asia, gives us opportunities then to import our skill sets abroad. But you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah. Although I'm not sure whether the growth in, let's say, Vietnam and the regional countries, right, is it driven by tariffs, right? Or is it a case where manufacturing of certain industries have moved to those places? So one example that comes to mind is that in the past, car manufacturing used to be in places like China, but as cost in China gets higher, then people are finding that you are able to bring it to a place like Vietnam, right, and produce those same cars at a
True.
much lower cost. So it's a
True.
bit of a musical chairs, right? Like
True.
you may be cheap for making certain things for a certain period of time. So as the industry matures, cost of labor starts to get higher because people
Yeah.
get more affluent, they just start to
Yeah,
cost more, right, to
yeah.
retain those talent.
Yeah,
Then you move to the
yeah.
next country. So in this case, it's
Yeah.
Vietnam. Then no, actually it was Thailand first, then Vietnam.
Then
So we may be
Vietnam.
seeing a sort of a musical chairs of that. So
Mm,
I'm not fully convinced that tariffs are the reason why
okay.
that is happening. So, but you know, let's see how that plays out.
Thanks for that. No, that's helpful. That's a helpful mental model. So actually, you just hit the nail on the head for me. So China, people are moving out of China because of various factors. Factor number one, demographic. The population is dropping, and people are becoming more expensive. So the cost has gone up. Number two, because of the COVID and what they did during COVID, destroying the manufacturing supply chain, people generally say, okay, let's have a +1 strategy. Tariffs is just another layer to give more reasons for people to shift out of China. So yeah, I think that things are not working in China's favor in the long term. But no, that's interesting to know. But again, tariffs, if not managed properly, can have an issue. So I think Trump has recently launched on U.S. steel. Tariffs on steel. So again, so taking your logic, that would bring manufacturing back to the U.S. in terms of steel products, but steel products is used in other places like car manufacturing. So you could have an increase in headcount in steel, but then jobs could be lost because profit margins would be lost of all companies that use steel. So again, it's a tough balance, what you tariff and what is the net positive impact. It could be actually a net negative impact because costs will go up for every other product. So it's an interesting space. So for Asia, we're not, again, you feel it's too early. For me, it's, again, I think there's a positive, but it depends.
No,
Too early to tell. Too early to tell. So I mean that is interesting. But so if you now, okay, tariffs is one key thing, and one key thing that's come that we have discussed a lot is immigration policies. So Trump has brought in very capable people, as we said earlier. I think the ice head is this guy called Tom Homan. Basically, I will summarize for the users who can't read, are listening to us. He started his career as a police officer. Then he moved to the Homeland Security, and after that became the acting ICE director and was appointed by Trump. So he is a no-nonsense guy who is amazing. So let me share with you a video of him having a debate with AOC, and it was epic. He literally smacked her. So let me just play the video.
AOC is
Are you
the
able to see the video?
congresswoman, right? Yeah.
Yes. I quite like AOC, but this was epic.
Yeah.
Recommendation of the many that you recommended family separation,
I recommend a zero tolerance.
which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that
Mr.
father from his
Homan, with all
woman.
due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're in the country illegally, it's violation of 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
Please
Dude, he smashed her. In the debate terms, he smashed her. Do you see the ad? She was like, It's quite logical. Whatever he said was seriously logical.
I mean, he's following the letter of the law there is in place now.
At least he could do that, because a lot of times I also used to think, hey, it's not fair to separate the children. But when you put it that way and I think about it myself, the same would have been done to me if I had a kid in the car. So basically, they're not doing anything. The left has always made it like a very big thing, but actually, technically, they do it to everybody, including American citizens. So I mean, this guy is no nonsense and is super capable. And apparently in America, they have an estimated 11 illegal immigrants living in the US as of January 2022. That is crazy, man. Apparently,
did you hear about the Selena Gomez drama?
No. What happened?
Okay. So one of the biggest advocate of immigrants, right, in the US is Selena Gomez. So if you don't know who she is, she used to sing, right, the popular songs and all, right?
I know.
So more recently, she's gotten into more
My
serious
generation.
stuff, our generation, right? Okay, so Selena Gomez, basically, she made quite a fair bit of comments around the recent
Yep.
immigration changes implemented by Trump as well as his
Yep.
team. So some of the Republicans, congressmen, decided
Yeah.
they started a campaign to say let's deport Selena Gomez because Selena Gomez's grandparents came from Mexico, and then
Ah.
after they were in the US, they had her father, and then subsequently had her. So in many ways, right, she's a product of decades of immigration policies, and she's almost like the poster girl of what has gone wrong, so to speak.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
so the
she
congressman
cried.
actually threatened to deport her, but of course it's more a dog and pony show, right? They're not really going to deport her because as it stands today, US is a birthright country. So if you are born here, regardless of where your parents are from, you would be an American citizen, which is very different from Singapore, for example. So in Singapore, if you are born here, at least one of your parents must be a Singaporean for you to be a Singapore citizen.
Dude, I literally remember seeing this chart as you said it. Apparently, America is the American continent is one of the few continents in the world that follow what they call the rule of land. As you say, regardless of your ancestry, if you are born in the country, you are a citizen. In fact, you're right. Every single country is rule of blood, which means your parents need to be a citizen before you can be a citizen.
Right.
That's
Oh, I'm surprised. I mean, you look at the colors, it's almost like the Westerners are more liberal in who can become one of their citizens, and the Eastern side is just very
basically
different.
your Westerners mean the Americans. Even the Europeans are rule of blood. No, that's surprising. I didn't know that. No, this is a chart. I remember once you said you became a citizen and land your bond. This is exactly what I saw. So that's crazy. And America is going to go check. Apparently, there's one of the amendments, correct? Changing this.
Actually, if you think of it, right, you mentioned what 11 million illegal immigrants are in the US at any given time. But one of the driving reasons for that is because if they successfully get into the US, they have a child here. Their child will be taken care of as an American citizen. Which I guess if you think about it in a kind of cynical kind of way, it's almost like you're encouraging people to come here illegally so that their children can have a future. Right? So if you remove the birthright or what you call the rule of the land rules, right? Then obviously
Solid.
then it may oh yeah, correct. There's a Latin word. I think it's a Latin word for it, right?
True
Then
solid.
you will encourage people not to do it. So I think that's kind of like the high level thinking.
So, but does it also, if the kids become American citizens, is there a benefit? Would the parents be able to be citizens and get the green card? Does that
It
give them
depends.
a
So
better?
like if you look at say Selena Gomez case, right? The grandparents did not become American citizens until decades later, after her father became an American citizen by birth. So yeah, not necessarily.
Oh, okay. So there was 11 million, and I showed earlier. And in fact, they were saying that during Biden's time, if you look at the chart, the amount of migrant numbers have spiked massively during Biden's period. And I remember watching TikTok, YouTube, and news channels. Quite a few of them were Chinese people. That what they did was they flew from China, went down to Mexico, and then from Mexico went up through the border into the US. I saw quite a lot of Chinese people.
But to be fair, right, if I look at the time period, right, during Trump's time, right, wasn't it the COVID period?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so when the COVID shutdowns ended and things became more opened up, borders started opening up, right? That coincided with Biden's time. I mean, I'm not siding with either Biden or Trump. I'm just saying the timing seems coincidental.
That's actually good analysis. I did not see it that way, but that is good analysis. Oh, maybe we've been unfair to Biden.
Right. So sometimes, I mean, if you think about a broader, you talk about the legacies of president, for example. Sometimes what a president does in the 4 years in office, the effects of that will not be felt until the next term. So depending on how that pans out, right, the next president can actually claim credit or disavow some of the effects that have come out of the previous administration. So sometimes you gotta take it. Look at it in hindsight, to evaluate that.
It's like Disney, Bob Iger and Bob Chapek. apparently a lot of the failed Disney shows, movies, and the series was actually approved in Bob Iger's time. So Bob Chapek literally had no choice to just run what was approved, and he took the full hit of all those movies. And then Bob Iger came back as Jesus Christ, the second coming, to save Disney.
You're talking about all those new movies that Disney came up with. They are more diversity.
Have you watched
ones,
Have you watched She-Hulk?
No.
Dude,
There was a mermaid. There was African American, right? There was a black mermaid.
Yes.
Oh,
I
okay,
actually
yeah.
absolutely
wasn't
don't
very
care.
popular.
No, the thing is, I don't care if it's your woman, you're black, white, purple, green. You know, dude, my favorite hero is Sigourney Weaver, Aliens. Do you remember her Aliens 2? She was saving the kid, and she said to the alien queen, "Get your hands off her, you bitch." That was epic. I wish my mother did that to me.
Yeah, we are disclosing our age already just from this conversation.
It's epic. So you're right. You're exactly right. Some things that is done that happens in the time of the CEO or the president, you're right, might not actually be something he kickstarted. It could be a legacy thing that now the effect is fully seen in your time. So, but on that note, actually, did you know quite? I know as we have seen, a lot of them were from Mexico. And one very interesting point to note, you know, there were actually about 100 Singaporeans that were marked for deportation too.
Huh?
Do you think Amos E is part of
Amos,
the
yeah,
group?
I was thinking of Amos E. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, our dear Amos E. Right? Is he still Singaporean?
I have no clue. He took the
I'm not
asylum,
sure.
correct?
Yeah, I don't.
took
Yeah,
an
I think
asylum.
I heard he took asylum, but I'm not sure whether he's still Singaporean. Yeah, it's probably one of this more than 100 Singaporeans.
I always found it extremely funny. The lady that fought for Amos E's asylum, when after what he did, went online to say she thinks he's absolutely bad for America and they should send him back. Imagine the dude has turned his supporters against him, but that's amazing. So at least the 100 Singaporeans were deported in the last few years, and what has happened is the ICE raids are starting to take massive effect, man. They're raiding nearly every key city in the United States.
Actually, there's a science to this, right? There is a particular the people they are targeting are those that like committed serious crime or something like that. There's a name for the act. I can't remember the name, but basically they are targeting more people who have committed a crime, are not good for society. Those are the ones they are targeting at the moment.
So to just add on to your fact, there was an interview that Tom Homan said. He says he would target everybody that came in illegally, but they will prioritize on those that have done a crime. And no, thanks for reading my mind. Actually, this act is called the Laken Riley Act. So it's so this is a picture I put. So it's quite a sad story, but it shows you how crazy the laws were in Biden's time. So the Laken Riley Act is named in memory of this 22-year-old nursing student named Laken Riley. She was from Georgia, and she was tragically murdered in February 2022, in the year 2024. The perpetrator is Jose Antonio Ibarra. He's a Venezuelan national. So what makes it really sad was he was actually caught multiple times. He was first caught in New York. Apparently, he was he was trying to injure a child and did some drunk driving, whatnot. It's something to do with a motor vehicle violation. So he got caught. And what happened was, before ICE could detain him, he was released. So he left New York. He was caught again in Georgia. And then he was now arrested for theft charges, but then was released again. And he then just stayed in the community. And what happened was, what happened to her was she went out for a jog. And then after that, somehow she met him, and he unalived her. So it's crazy to think that this guy was actually caught in the system 2 to 3 times. And if the system had deported him, she would have still be alive. And in the picture you see on the left, that's actually her mother. Okay. So this act's key goal, correct, is actually aimed to eliminate your catch and release policies that was quite big in Biden's time, stricter sentencing. And then what happens is, once you make an error, they will send you back through the deportation. So it's something Trump has been trying to push, and And again, whatever is pushing, when you find out the background, it just makes sense. This guy was caught 2 or 3 times, but yet he was released.
I mean, the problems. I mean, this sort of problems doesn't just isolate itself to immigration. You think about committing crime in the U.S., right? Most police departments are by states. So if you commit a crime in New York, it'll be managed by the NYPD. If you do it in Jersey, it's the Jersey PD, right? So and each of these states have its own jurisdiction. So unless the crime becomes serious enough, where it becomes a serial kind of criminal, then it will start to be investigated and coordinated at the federal level. Then that's when things get more coordinated. Otherwise, right, you can commit a crime, say in New York, then you go to Jersey, then you go to California, and it may take a very long time before things get coordinated and recognized. So it's a problem when you live in a place where it's decentralized. You're managed by different state regulations and laws.
Maybe let us double click further on this, right? Can you share more of the federal thing? So you mean the police in New York operates in a very different manner from, say...
Okay, you think about it. Okay, let's do the Singapore example. Just hypothetical, of course. You committed a crime in Toa Payoh, and the Toa Payoh police station starts to investigate it, for example, right? Then you go to Novena, which is beside Toa Payoh, and then Novena has its own police station. So now imagine a case in Singapore where the Toa Payoh will investigate something that happened in Toa Payoh. Then when the person moves to Novena, now it is Novena's jurisdiction. But Novena's police station does not have the information from Toa Payoh police station because it's different areas, right? And then they treat it as though there's a new crime or that the crime did not really happen in that jurisdiction. So unless let's use an example, there's a centralized, let's say the CID, for example, it's the centralized police station for Singapore. So unless CID steps in to collect all the information across the nation, and then they can then coordinate between Toa Payoh and Novena, or any other places where the criminal is, and investigate that. So of course this is a totally hypothetical example, but that's really what's happening in the US.
Oh, that's interesting. That is why you have the FBI. They are the federal level police.
Right, those are the federal level. So when they say a case has gone federal, that's what they really mean. It means that now it is investigated at a national level.
Well, thanks for educating me. I did not know that. So no, since we're talking about the FBI, I know we have 15 minutes and we have a time contract to keep it within an hour. Let's try to make this the last topic. Great segue about FBI. Okay. Actually I was moderating towards that direction. So one very interesting point to note is Trump has begun to target prosecutors and agents that worked on the Gen 6 and those that were investigating against him. In fact, he has ordered the senior guys to resign. He wants the names of all the employees that worked on this. What do you think about what he's doing? Is this even right to take revenge?
I mean, the FBI is supposed to operate independently from the president's office, similar to how the Federal Reserve is supposed to be. So it seems like there's a bit of a conflict of interest, right, for the president to be firing people who are involved in, I guess, the 6th of January incident, right? Incident, right? I mean, the optics of it is wrong, man. It's just wrong. Even the moral aspect of this is completely wrong.
Unless, where I think it justified not supporting Trump, but where if the FBI did go against Trump for political reasons, I think that could be the case, correct? And you look at it, it's not a small amount. It's about 5,000 employees that have worked on this case, and they wanted all this information. Trump officials wanted all this information. 5,000 employees, and you notice they say identified them by code and not by name. This is because the acting FBI before Kash Patel is being confirmed is fighting against Trump. He doesn't want to give the names.
Actually, at the end of the day, right, one of the things that will happen is that you think about if you are going to be the FBI in the future, you know that there could be retribution for the type of cases that you're investigating, especially against someone that is powerful.
Yeah.
Now you'll be more reluctant to do what's right, right? No matter how this pans out, right? Now you're going to be more reluctant to do what's right. So I think it's just a loss.
True. It builds in a wrong tone from the top. Now people won't actually... True. You if there is a president that did wrong, no one will fight against the president anymore.
Exactly.
Because now he has done a precedent.
Imagine in Singapore, right? If whoever is the ISD, for example, they're investigating Iswaran. And Iswaran is putting pressure on them and everything. Then
Yeah.
eventually they found guilty. But what if they found him not guilty? Then he comes back as a minister. Now he's targeting them, getting them fired because
Yeah.
they investigated him.
Yeah.
That is a absolute corrosion of what a democracy or
No, sure.
what a police force with integrity is
Absolutely right.
supposed to be. It's quite crazy. To me, this is just, I mean, it can really only happen in the US.
Really. And what actually the interesting thing to me is not that Trump wants to have retribution to these guys. It is in fact there was a wrong appointment in the acting FBI director. So
is it?
the current FBI, so the story is super funny. So this is the dude. The dude is amazing. He's funny. This is his official picture. Look at him. He's giving the people's eyebrow. So what happened was his name was put up incorrectly on the White House website.
Oh.
And then Trump, then they didn't want to correct the error, and then they were thinking to themselves that, I mean, in the next few weeks, Kash Patel will be FBI director anyway, so let's not change it. So in fact, the guy that was supposed to, so this is a news article, so this is literally what happened. They put the wrong agent as the acting director, didn't correct the mistake, and this guy, Driscoll, is a known Trump critic. That was why he's fighting against Trump at every step of the way, blocking names. Okay, you want it? I'll give you 5,000 list of potential employee codes. So I mean, this is quite interesting how he was actually appointed, right?
But by the way, right, I was not aware that you are appointed to the position because you're on a HTML website. Yeah, so I mean, isn't there like some formal signing or something like, I'm now the
Exactly.
acting director, signed off or something?
Exactly.
No, this is ridiculous. I didn't hear of this. This is the first time I heard this.
Yes, my critical mind kicked in and said, "No, that can't be true. That can't be right." So this information, I first saw the information on TikTok, but then I went and I found it on New York Post. It has to be right, lah. New York Post is quite a decent publication, I assume. So it was supposed. It's great. It was supposed to be this guy. This guy looks more Trumpy. Looks more of a Trump supporter. But you see, you can already see the difference in personality from the picture. This guy, no nonsense, very Trump-like supporter. And you got this guy, curly hair, giving the people's eyebrow. No, it's amazing. So this guy that was supposed to be his name is Kisaid. He's actually number 2 to Driscoll. So apparently, what happened was rather than correct the error, the administration decided to leave it as it is.
Yeah, because it's such a casual role, right? I mean, it's only the FBI. I mean, yeah, that's why.
I mean, what does the FBI director actually do anyway?
Oh, this is
amazing, right?
I don't think I can sleep tonight, man. I did not know this. Okay, this is wow.
Dude, I mean, we can hope that the Singapore government's website puts an error. You and my name comes out as a minister. Whoa, bro, settled.
Yeah, except that it will be corrected, and we won't become ministers just because there's a mistake. But, wow.
No, that's true. So there's a lot of funny things. In fact, in our next week when we talk about Doge, the same thing has happened in the Doge thing. Apparently, they were doing simple tactics to try to find out who was fraudulent. And I'll share, it's exactly the same. A small error, they put it out, and when you listen to it, it sounds exactly like a movie plot. And this is exactly the same, like how Bishop of HTML, I put the wrong name, you're now the acting director of the FBI.
This is a more dramatic version of fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of we've discussed the first 30 days of Trump. He has done quite a lot, from a tariff standpoint. I think both our views are he's using tariffs more as a tool as a leverage tool to force what he wants. But on the impact to Asia, it's really clearly unknown. I mean, on your side, you're thinking it benefits America more. On my side, I think there is potential it being a boon for Asia. But again, too early to tell. Right? And in fact, for China, it's not good because all the bricks of why you should not build in China is starting to grow over time. So it's a point to note when you look at Chinese manufacturing. And really, in terms of immigration, again, the immigration laws is quite logical. I don't see anything to be unhappy about.
I think a lot of things are happening with the Trump and his administration is optically driven. And
Yep.
the reason is because like many of the things he's doing now are things that he campaigned on during the presidential election. So, for example, he talked about the fact that he's going to introduce a Department of Government Efficiency
Yeah.
with Elon Musk. He talked about that. He said that it's going to be strong on immigration. He talked about that. So nothing he's doing is not what he campaigned for. So he's merely fulfilling the mandate that he was elected to. So for that, I respect that. But whether the American citizens they made the right decisions to support those kind of agenda, I mean, after all, I'm not American, right? So I leave it to them to decide how they want to elect, who they want to elect to manage the
Yeah.
country. Yeah.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, right, I think it's important for us, in Asia and Singapore, we need to continue to be nimble, especially in a place of Singapore where we are more guided by interests rather than by what countries are targeting. So whether it's China, US, or any other country, right, we are steered by our interests. What's good for Singapore. So I think we
Yep.
need to continue to do that.
That's absolutely right. I think in terms of Singapore, we cannot pick a side. We have to decide what's best for us in a really very core logical cost benefit analysis. Because once you pick a side, things change. American presidents change. They might change what they want to do. Correct. That's literally happening for I think the Gaza, correct? For Ukraine. The American president Joe Biden believed supported Ukraine. Now Trump is totally different. He's even speaking to Putin directly. So you're right. You can't put yourself in the whims of the country. It's really more of understanding what we can do today and what's the long-term impact, and then being flexible to adjust. So tariffs will be an interesting place, for Singapore to play and provide its advice to Southeast Asia. I feel.
Yeah, correct. I think Singapore, we need to make sure that even if the government changes, our positions must stay the same, so that we remain consistent in the global world stage. I think that's what keeps Singapore stable and prosperous in the longer term.
Exactly. And you're right, for the business point of view, they want to know that you're stable and consistent.
Exactly.
So they don't have to change. So I spoke to some headhunters a while back. They were saying a lot of American companies are freezing their hires because they just want to wait and see what is Trump going to do. Because he's so chaotic. Every time he comes out a new regulation, they have to adapt and adjust to make sure they're in compliance. So that's hard for businesses. So I think Singapore's greatest strength is it's stable. The government has been the same, so you know exactly where they stand, what they're going to do. Its stance is very clear, and I think that helps businesses, build their base long term in the country itself.
We've got a couple of minutes left, right?
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that companies, because of Trump's position on DEI, many companies that used to have a DEI department have to fire those people who are running them. So I guess that's no longer a thing.
Dude,
I
they
think
were
that's happening
making-
in gaming companies and even some big companies. Can't remember the names right now, but yeah.
I have a quick one. PBS DI executives, they were paid millions of dollars. One lady was paid $400K, including bonuses for DI. That is amazing. But we can discuss that next week. So again, next week we're going to discuss about Doge. We have loads of interesting news, and the things I talk about, this is the real Doge logo.
Wait, this is the real logo.
I think this is the real logo.
No,
This is literally the real logo. And you should hear the story of what Doge has done, how they have done it, how they detected US AID's so-called fraudulent spending. It's amazing. The story behind it is epic. So, Boon, I need to pee soon. Anything to say before we wrap up?
Oh, good. Okay, go pee. Looking forward to next week, and I still cannot believe that this is the logo. So
it is the logo,
goodbye, everyone.
really. All right, let me just add this all. That's all we got for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the Red Dot Perspective. What do you think about Trump's second term? Has he delivered on his promises, or is it just more of the same? Let us know in the comments. We'll catch you next time with more conversations that matter from Singapore to the world. Cheers. Good night.
See you, everyone.